The end of the Mexican-American War brought John Marsh new challenges and opportunities. During the 1848 gold rush, Marsh discovered gold on the Yuba River, a locality that quickly became known as Marsh's Diggings. Marsh used this wealth to build up his rancho. Soon, he was supplying beef and grain to San Francisco and the booming mining camps. But this lawless land swarmed with thieves, rustlers, and murderous bandits. At midnight on December 5, 1850, outlaws led by Claudio Feliz overran Marsh's Rancho Los Maganos, murdering a young visitor after overpowering John and systematically looting the Marsh adobe. To fight the outlaws, Dr. Marsh now called upon his friend, James Kirker. Kirker, legendary gunfighter and scalp hunter, soon had the situation under control. But with the death of James Kirker in 1852 from natural causes, John Marsh was left to face the rising outlaw tide alone. As chairman of the county grand jury, Marsh angered many of the local rancheros. He tried to put a stop to the common practice of stealing Indian children and making them slaves on the large ranchos. In 1851, John married Abby Tuck, a Massachusetts school teacher. She had come to California for adventure and her health. Her letters to her family gave us the best description of what life was like on the Marsh Rancho and the wild California frontier during the early 1850s. The following is a story of life and death on the very edge of civilization, in Abby's own words.
September 14th, 1851. My dear family, where we live now is one of the most lonely places in the world. We have no church unless we go to town, which is not very often. We have had a very warm summer. One day the thermometer stood at 109 degrees. The mosquitoes bite me so bad. We live in the plainest possible manner and dress very plain. There is a house here, but not one that my husband wants me to live in. We live in an adobe house, which is rather old. The doctor now thinks of building a new stone house, which will probably cost from $15,000 to $20,000, and I long to see it done. In the spring, the hills and plains are one complete flower garden, and more beautiful than you ever saw. We have a very large vineyard. We are going to have a great many fruit trees, pears, apples, peaches, gooseberries, and currant bushes. August 29th, 1852. Since I last wrote to you, we have had a little daughter presented to us. Her father thinks she is the prettiest and smartest child in the world. We call her Alice Francis. The Indians who live on our rancho almost worship her. They think she is a perfect little beauty. As to your questions about the Indians, we are no more danger of being killed by them than you are. The bad and wild Indians are more than 100 miles from us. We have a great many Indians who live under the doctor's protection a few rods from our door. I think a great deal of them. Not a day passes but 2 or 3 or 6 Indian women come to see me. I often go see them and carry them medicines when they are sick. They now have the chills and fever. A great many of them would die if left to themselves. April 18th, 1853. Little more than 2 years or so, 4 men were hung for stealing the doctor's and another man's cattle. We have now less stolen every year. We have a great deal of money in a year, but it goes to hire helpers that protect us from thieves and vagabonds that surround us. Here the thieves and vagabonds are like wolves waiting to tear you in pieces if you do not keep a sharp lookout for them. October 5th, 1854. 3 murderers killed a man about 2 miles from our house. When they shot him, it was just dark, and he escaped to our house and lived 2 days and nights. He lived alone, and they supposed he had money. From the murdered man's descriptions, the doctor wrote to Stockton and had it telegraphed to San Francisco, and they were taken by the police and brought to Martinez. They are all convicted of murder and will be hung.
By the spring of 1855, Abby's health began to fail rapidly.
My dear family, I've got a kind and good husband who will ever take the best care of me. I do not know what ails me. I have no appetite, and I'm so weak. My dear parents and brother and sisters, my weak and trembling hand would fain clasp yours and say farewell. May God bless and console you. Pray for my dear husband and darling child who needs your sympathies.
Abby died shortly thereafter, in early August 1855, Dr. Marsh buried his beloved wife beside the stone house she had yearned for. Her last wish, to be buried by the side of my husband, would come to pass all too soon.